Jasmine Porter stepped into the grand lobby of Westbridge National Bank, her fingers tightening around the crisp white envelope in her hands. The cool air conditioning washed over her, contrasting with the warmth of the afternoon sun outside. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. This was a big moment, her first time handling a real bank transaction on her own. The $5,000 scholarship check inside the envelope wasn't just money, it was proof of her hard work, the countless nights spent studying, the weekends sacrificed for extra tutoring, the unwavering support of her mother. It was her future. She walked toward the counter with a sense of pride, her sneakers barely making a sound against the polished marble floor. A neatly dressed bank teller, a middle-aged woman with styled blonde hair and thin-rimmed glasses, looked up as Jasmine approached. Offering a polite smile, Jasmine slid the check across the counter. "Hi. I'd like to deposit this into my account." The teller picked up the check, her eyes scanning the amount. The smile on her face faltered slightly. Her gaze flickered to Jasmine's face, then back to the paper in her hands. Without a word, she turned and walked briskly toward a glass-walled office at the back of the bank. Jasmine's fingers twitched, a slight unease creeping in as she watched the woman disappear behind the door. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, glancing around the room. Other customers were being helped quickly, chatting casually with the tellers, exchanging warm smiles. She saw an older man deposit a check without so much as a second glance from the bank employees. A woman withdrew cash without needing to explain a thing. Yet here she was, waiting. Minutes ticked by, stretching uncomfortably long. Then the office door opened, and a tall woman in a navy blue blazer stepped out, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Jasmine recognized her from the nameplate on the desk, Victoria Hayes, bank manager, Victoria walked up to the counter, picking up the check as if it were a suspicious document rather than a scholarship award. She eyed Jasmine with a cold, assessing stare. "You'll need to provide additional verification for this," Victoria said, her tone professional but distant. Jasmine blinked. "But it's a scholarship check. It's made out to me." Victoria barely looked at her. "Do you have proof of where this money came from? A letter from the issuer? A parent or guardian with you?" Jasmine felt her stomach tighten. "I have my student ID and the scholarship letter," she said quickly, reaching into her backpack. Victoria held up a hand, stopping her mid-motion. "That won't be enough. We need to verify this with the issuing institution. Until then, we can't process the deposit." Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. Something about the way Victoria was speaking to her, detached, skeptical, made her skin prickle with discomfort. She glanced around again. No one else was being questioned. No one else was being asked for extra verification. "Please step aside and wait over there," Victoria said, gesturing toward a small seating area near the entrance. Jasmine hesitated, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. She noticed, for the first time, the security guard positioned near the door. His eyes were on her now, watching closely. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't about the check. This was about her. Heat burned at the back of her eyes, but she swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay composed. Slowly, she turned and walked to the waiting area, every step feeling heavier than the last. She sank into a chair, her pulse hammering in her ears. She had come here excited, ready to celebrate a small but significant milestone. Instead, she was being treated like a suspect. Like she didn't belong. And that realization stung more than she had expected. Jasmine sat stiffly in the waiting area, her fingers gripping the straps of her backpack so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The cold leather seat beneath her felt uninviting, as if it were pushing her away rather than offering comfort. She swallowed hard, trying to ignore the weight of the stairs pressing down on her. Every passing second felt like an eternity, amplifying the unease twisting in her stomach. The security guard, tall, broad-shouldered, with a no-nonsense expression, stood only a few feet away, his arms crossed over his chest. His eyes, dark and watchful, lingered on her just a little too long. Jasmine shifted in her seat, forcing herself to sit up straighter. It wasn't her imagination. He was watching her. Why? Her gaze flickered around the room. Other customers, mostly older, mostly white, moved through the bank with ease. An older man in a navy blazer joked with a teller as he withdrew cash. A middle-aged woman in a sleek business suit breezed through her transaction with a warm smile from the clerk. And then there was the young white woman at the counter, her check in hand, just like Jasmine's had been. But unlike Jasmine, she was met with efficiency, not suspicion. The teller glanced at the check, typed a few things into the computer, and nodded. No extra verification. No extended wait. No security guard looming over her like a silent warning. Within moments, the woman was on her way, stuffing crisp bills into her wallet as she walked past Jasmine without a second thought. Jasmine's grip on her backpack tightened. A heat crept up her neck, frustration bubbling in her chest. Why was she being treated differently? Why was she the only one waiting, the only one facing scrutiny? She bit her lip, forcing down the bitter sting of humiliation. She had done everything right. She had come in prepared, dressed appropriately, speaking politely. And yet, none of it seemed to matter. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Asterisk, you'll have to work twice as hard, be twice as prepared, and carry yourself with grace. But even then, there will be people who won't see you for who you are. They'll only see what they want to see. Asterisk. Was this one of those moments? She let out a slow breath, trying to calm the rapid beating of her heart. Losing her temper wouldn't help. But sitting here, waiting in silence, didn't feel right either. Her eyes darted toward Victoria Hayes' office. The bank manager sat at her desk, the check still in her hand, her lips moving as she spoke into the phone. But something about her posture felt off. She wasn't just verifying information. She was stalling. Jasmine's stomach twisted into knots. Was Victoria really calling to confirm the scholarship? Or was she looking for a reason to deny the transaction altogether? A cold wave of doubt settled over her. She had earned that scholarship. She had worked tirelessly for it, pouring hours into her studies, competing against hundreds of other students. That check wasn't a mistake. It was hers. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pulled out her phone. If they were going to treat her differently, she would document everything. She opened her notes app and quickly typed. Arrived at 2:10 p.m. Teller took my check, then said she needed a manager. Victoria Hayes took the check, said she needed extra verification. Asked me to wait, security guard watching me. Other customers getting service without issue. She hesitated for a moment, then added. Is this discrimination? Her chest tightened at the thought, but she knew deep down what was happening. Just then, movement caught her eye. Through the glass panels of Victoria's office, she saw something that made her breath hitch. A man had entered the room. Tall, with a neatly tailored gray suit, salt and pepper hair slicked back with precision. His presence alone demanded attention. He wasn't just another employee. He wasn't a customer. Jasmine's heart pounded as she squinted, trying to get a clearer look. Victoria leaned forward, lowering her voice as she slid a file across the desk toward him. The man picked it up, flipping through the pages, his expression unreadable. Jasmine's stomach dropped. She knew that face. Harrison Wells. Even at 14, she recognized the name. CEO of Crest Hill Bank. A powerful executive from one of Westbridge National's biggest competitors. What was he doing here? Jasmine's pulse quickened. She inched forward in her seat, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Banks didn't just share confidential documents with rival CEOs. This wasn't normal. This wasn't routine. Something about this meeting felt secretive. Wrong. A chill ran down her spine. She had walked into this bank expecting to deposit a check. But now, she was witnessing something much bigger. Jasmine's pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out the low hum of conversation and the soft clicking of keyboards around her. Had she really just seen what she thought she had? Her fingers clenched around the fabric of her jeans as she forced herself to stay calm, her body stiff against the hard plastic chair. Every instinct told her something wasn't right. The way Victoria Hayes, the bank manager, had leaned in, speaking in hushed tones to Harrison Wells, the CEO of a rival bank, was suspicious enough, but the way she had passed him that thick folder of documents had sent alarm bells ringing in Jasmine's mind. She had only caught a glimpse of the exchange through the slightly ajar door to Victoria's office, but it had been enough. The way Harrison Wells flipped through the papers, nodding in grim satisfaction, the way Victoria anxiously tapped her manicured nails against the polished surface of her desk, it wasn't normal. This wasn't a routine business meeting. This was something secret. Something dangerous. Jasmine's breath came out in short, shallow bursts as she forced herself to think logically. If she made a move too soon, she could get caught. But if she did nothing, she might be letting something huge slip through her fingers. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she shifted in her seat, angling herself slightly to keep an eye on the office without drawing attention. Carefully, she reached into her hoodie pocket, fingers wrapping around her phone. She had to get proof, just in case. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the screen, pretending to scroll through messages. Asterisk, come on, Jasmine. Act normal, asterisk. Lifting the phone slightly, she angled the camera, barely tilting her wrist. She tapped the screen, snapping a quick photo. Then another. The images were a little blurry, but they captured the two figures, the folder, the tension in the air. Just as she was about to take another, Victoria straightened in her chair, her sharp gaze flickering toward the waiting area. Jasmine's heart stopped. She immediately looked down, pretending to be completely absorbed in her screen. Did she see me? Her fingers hovered over the screen, hesitating. For a split second, the room felt too quiet, like everyone had stopped moving. Seconds stretched unbearably. Then, the tense silence was broken by the soft snap of a folder closing. Jasmine dared to glance up. Harrison Wells stood, his expression unreadable as he buttoned his dark suit jacket with practiced precision. He reached down, scooped up the folder, and tucked it into his briefcase before walking toward the exit. His steps were smooth, confident, like a man who had just completed a deal he had done 100 times before. Jasmine barely breathed as he passed by her, catching the faint scent of expensive cologne. He didn't even look in her direction. But Victoria did. Jasmine felt it before she saw it, the slow, deliberate shift of power. The way Victoria straightened her blazer, smoothing out imaginary wrinkles before stepping forward, her heels clicking against the floor with sharp, intentional precision. The woman stopped just in front of her, peering down with a polite but cold smile. "Miss Porter," Victoria said smoothly, folding her hands in front of her. "I appreciate your patience." Jasmine's throat went dry. She willed herself to meet the woman's gaze, but something in those eyes, calculating, assessing, made her skin prickle with unease. "We just need a few more moments to finalize your verification," Victoria continued, her voice pleasant but laced with something unspoken. "A warning." Jasmine gave a slow nod, gripping the straps of her backpack tightly as Victoria held her gaze for a moment longer. Then, just as smoothly as she had approached, the bank manager turned on her heel and disappeared into a restricted area behind the counter. Jasmine let out a shaky breath. Something wasn't right. And now, she was part of it. Jasmine's hands were cold despite the heat building inside her chest. She tried to steady her breathing, but every inhale felt too shallow, every exhale too shaky. The weight of what she had just witnessed pressed down on her like an invisible force. She wanted to believe she had imagined it, that maybe she was reading too much into things, but the evidence was right there on her phone screen. A blurry but unmistakable image of Victoria Hayes slipping a folder into Harrison Wells' hands. The way they had whispered in hushed, urgent voices. The quick glances over their shoulders, as if afraid of being watched. Jasmine swallowed hard. She had no idea what was inside that folder, but one thing was clear, it wasn't meant to be seen by just anyone. Her mother's lessons about the financial world echoed in her mind. Asterisk every institution has secrets, Jasmine. Corruption doesn't announce itself, it hides in plain sight, behind polite smiles and official documents, asterisk. Could that be what she was seeing? She pressed her phone against her lap, careful not to attract attention. She needed to be smart about this. If she acted suspicious, if she made any sudden moves, someone might notice. Glancing up, she saw the bank's security guard still pacing near the entrance, his gaze occasionally flicking toward her. Was it just routine? Or was he watching her specifically? A shiver ran down her spine. She took a slow breath and forced herself to focus. First, she needed to make sure the photos were safe. Her fingers moved quickly but deliberately, uploading them to her cloud storage. Then, just to be certain, she sent them to her personal email. Just in case something happens to my phone. Her heart pounded at the thought. She wasn't being paranoid, was she? Before she could dwell on it, the sound of approaching footsteps made her stiffen. Jasmine looked up to see Victoria Hayes walking toward her, her posture straight, her heels clicking against the polished floor with quiet confidence. Her expression was calm, but Jasmine wasn't fooled. There was something too measured about her smile, something forced. "Miss Porter," Victoria said smoothly, stopping just in front of Jasmine's chair. "I appreciate your patience. I just spoke with the Fraud Prevention Department, and unfortunately, we'll need additional verification before we can process your check." Jasmine felt her stomach twist. Additional verification? She had already provided her student ID, her scholarship letter, and every other document they had asked for. There was no logical reason for this delay. She had been sitting here for nearly an hour while other customers, mostly white, mostly older, walked in and out without issue. She had watched a man deposit a check without so much as showing an ID. Her hands curled into fists. "What kind of verification?" she asked, keeping her voice even. Victoria smiled, but there was something patronizing about it. "Just standard procedure, dear." Jasmine's pulse pounded in her ears. Standard procedure, then why was she the only one being put through it? She tightened her grip on the arms of her chair, forcing herself to stay calm. "I've already provided everything you asked for," she said. "My ID, my school documents, the scholarship letter. What else do you need?" Victoria's expression didn't change, but Jasmine saw the flicker of something in her eyes. Annoyance. "I understand this must be frustrating for you," Victoria said in that same syrupy tone. "But these are the bank's policies. If you'd like, you can return with a parent or guardian, and we'll be happy to continue the process then." Jasmine felt her whole body go rigid. Return with a parent or guardian? She wasn't 5 years old. She wasn't a child who needed a grown-up to speak for her. She was 14, a teenager, yes, but also a scholarship recipient, a straight-A student, and someone who had every right to be here handling her own banking. And yet, Victoria wanted to dismiss her. Her grip on her backpack tightened. She wasn't just being delayed, she was being pushed out. Jasmine clenched her jaw. She could leave now. Walk away, pretend none of this ever happened, and come back with her mother to avoid any more trouble. That would be the easy thing to do. But that wasn't who she was. She stood up slowly, meeting Victoria's gaze head-on. "That's okay," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'll make sure to let my mother know about this. And maybe a few other people, too." Victoria's confident expression faltered, just for a second. It was brief, but Jasmine caught it, the hesitation, the flicker of unease. "Good." Jasmine turned on her heel, her heart racing as she walked toward the exit. She didn't know exactly what she had stumbled into today. But one thing was certain. This wasn't just about a scholarship check anymore. And she wasn't going to let it slide. Jasmine stepped out of the bank, her legs feeling weak beneath her. She had to force herself to take each step, feeling as if the ground was shifting under her feet. The sun, warm and bright, hung in the sky above her, but it didn't seem to reach her. Everything felt distant, blurred. She couldn't shake the image of Victoria Hayes and Harrison Wells locked in that secretive exchange. Her heart hammered against her chest, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Her fingers trembled as they gripped the straps of her backpack, her knuckles white with the force of her hold. She wasn't sure how long she'd been standing outside, her mind in a whirl of confusion and disbelief. It was almost as if she had stepped into another world, one where nothing was as it seemed. The air around her was thick with the weight of what she had witnessed, pressing down on her like a physical force. Her thoughts were scattered, racing in every direction. Why had Victoria been so eager to get her out of there? She'd been treated like a criminal, a child who couldn't possibly be trusted with something as simple as a scholarship check. And yet, in the midst of all that, Jasmine had seen the truth that had nothing to do with her. She had seen the documents, hidden beneath the desk, passed in secret like they were a carefully guarded treasure. What had they contained? What was so important that they had to hide it from everyone, even from her? The anger started to build in her chest. It was an angry heat that began to spread, from her stomach to her throat, making it harder to breathe. She had been unfairly singled out, treated with suspicion simply because of who she was, but now it felt different. It wasn't just about her anymore. She wasn't just a victim of prejudice or assumptions. She was a witness to something dangerous. She had seen something she wasn't supposed to. Jasmine's legs moved on their own, guiding her to a bench near the bus stop just down the street from the bank. She sat down, her head spinning as she tried to ground herself in the reality of what had just unfolded. Her eyes were glued to her phone screen, even though she couldn't bring herself to unlock it right away. Her fingers hovered over the device, her pulse racing with the anticipation of what she would do next. She could still feel the weight of the photos she had taken, safe in her cloud storage. They were there, evidence of something bigger than her, something that had the potential to unravel everything. But what did it mean? What was the connection between Victoria, Wells, and the documents? Jasmine could sense that there was more to the story than met the eye. She needed to know more, but she was terrified of what she might uncover. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, a steadying presence in the midst of her chaos. The world of finance is ruthless, Jasmine. People will do anything to protect their power. Don't get caught in their games. It felt like the universe had just thrown her into that game, unprepared, unsure of what the rules were or how to play. She felt completely out of her depth. This wasn't just about a check. It wasn't even about what happened inside the bank. It was about something much bigger, something that threatened to consume her if she wasn't careful. She leaned back against the bench, her eyes staring blankly ahead as she tried to make sense of it all. She wasn't sure how long she sat there, her mind a whirlwind of questions and fears. The truth was, she was scared of the consequences of what she had seen and even more terrified of the possibility that she might be putting her mother in danger by getting involved. But at the same time, there was a fire inside her, a need to understand, to uncover the truth. Jasmine's gaze dropped to her phone again, and she opened her Messages app. She knew what she had to do next, even if it terrified her. She couldn't stay silent. She couldn't just walk away, pretending that nothing had happened. She had to tell her mother. She took a deep breath and typed out the message, her fingers slow but determined. "Mom, we need to talk. It's important. I saw something at the bank today, and I think it's bigger than I thought. Please call me." Her thumb hovered over the send button. For a split second, she questioned whether it was the right thing to do. What if her mother didn't believe her? What if she made everything worse? But then she thought of the photo, the way it had felt when she'd snapped it, like a decision had been made for her, like the world had forced her hand. She hit send. The message was out there, the first step toward a truth she wasn't sure she was ready for. But it was too late to turn back now. Jasmine stood up from the bench, feeling the weight of the moment settle around her. She was about to cross a line, and there was no going back. She could only hope she was making the right choice.